Hello and welcome to another Guardian of Wiltshire video. I'm your host Demi, and this is another Not All Those Who Wander a Lot of community interviews. This week I'm joined by the lovely Jasmine Tetley. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So this is going to follow a similar style to all of the others. We've just had a brief chat and you said you've seen them, so that hopefully there's no questions that should surprise you as much.
Oh, I can't remember all the questions.
That's fine. That's even better. So a bit about kind of your personal hobby, a bit about your collection, and then kind of gaming community sections as well. So if we dive straight in, how did you get into playing SVG?
I think it's the boring answer that everyone says, but the magazines.
The magazines.
But it was quite good, really, because I've got a brother, so we would play loads together.
Oh, nice.
So that was really nice, basically. Because before the GBHL started, you only really had like the one event or two events a year, and you don't really learn much outside of that. But at least having somebody regular to play with is good.
Yeah, most definitely. So kind of, how old were you when you got into the hobby then?
10-ish, I think.
I was going to say, similar. So yeah, it was kind of, that's what captured my imagination, is the films. So what's your favourite aspect of the hobby?
The favourite aspect? Oh, that's a hard one. I think it's probably 3 parts to it, maybe.
Yeah.
The first bit is the people.
Yeah.
Like just getting to meet really nice people, and then you just get to have some good friendships and a good laugh at a weekend. The other bit is the fact that it takes your mind off things. So it's like an ability just like as a release, but also like I've got fibromyalgia, so just even engaging your mind in something takes away from the physical pain, which is really, really good. So
yeah, I can well imagine.
I think people just underestimate how positive a hobby it can be beyond just like actual socializing. There's so many different aspects to the hobby, which is pretty great. And then I guess the last part really is just I like to challenge myself, and it's just fun, really.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of people have said the same, a similar thing. The fact that the social aspect, especially in our community, is wonderful. I don't think of any other sport or like sports teams or whatnot that I've known really where people can just go in and someone random will just say hello to them if they're looking a bit lost. I know that happened with me when I first attended tournaments. It's interesting you say it takes your mind off things. I find a similar thing, and it's just something you can just get lost in.
Yeah, it's just engaging your brain. It takes your mind off thinking about other things, or it just allows you to sort of get involved in one area, and your brain just becomes focused. And like you said, it's just a way of taking your mind off maybe stress or whatever it is, and it just allows you to almost like build up a recovery sort of thing.
Yeah, you kind of just zone out a little bit. I find I put Netflix, Amazon Prime, whatever on, and kind of just have my hobby, and you kind of lose track of time and lose.
Oh yeah, you come away from a weekend and you're like, I've just played for at least 6 hours, but none of those ever felt like 2-hour games. Like,
No, not at all.
How did that time go so quickly?
Yeah. I was going to say, especially if you've had a night out in the middle of it as well, you just, I'd like to say, you lose complete track of time. So going from the favourite aspect to the least favourite aspect, do you have a particular area which you don't like doing? Building models, for example, or painting, or...
I don't enjoy painting.
No?
It's a chore. I do like the fact that all of my models are painted, and they're like even though it's not the best painting, it's my models, and
Yeah,
it's got my own style to it. So
yeah,
sometimes I might find myself painting a particular model or doing a particular project that it goes by a bit easier, but generally I find it quite hard to motivate, and that's where writing a list and having a tournament deadline means you just have to paint it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We've all been there, staying up till silly o'clock in the morning trying to get a model done. So how do you find the balance? Do you have like a certain balance you like to achieve between kind of your painting and your playing, maybe building terrain, that kind of thing?
It's pretty much play as much as possible, and if I then think, oh, I now want to play with this model or do this list, then I've got to get on and paint it. So painting's always like a secondary.
A
It's
necessity rather than a joy.
yeah. I
Do
mean, I
you?
can see that I've come a long way with it, but it's just also it's the fact that it's like I can't reach the amazing high standards that everyone else sets, and it's like, wow.
I was going to say, I think I've had a discussion with someone else about this, but the standard of painting within our community over the last 2 years, especially, it's just gone through the roof.
Oh, it's just extraordinary. Like I get to a tournament and what my models are the worst painted here. Like everybody's is just so good. And when it comes to like voting for best painted competitions, I actually, because I'm not that good a painter myself, I can't tell just precisely what separates two really, really good painters. And then it just comes down to whatever you like, really. But you can appreciate both of them.
Yeah, most definitely. Like I said, I'm not nowhere near the standard of some of your Scott Whitefoots, Andy Hamblins, Matt Davis, that kind of people. But yeah, like I'm similar to you. When you see two ridiculous armies on the table, and you're like, right, you don't know how much time someone's put into one and someone's put into the other, and you don't quite know how, like, because I've seen some people go, oh, this is like a 3 hour job, and it's just insane. And like, I spend 3 hours on a hero and basically get kind of the base colours and the shades on.
I don't think it's really fair to compare it just in terms of time spent on
Not
it.
at
Because
all.
my painting, I just obviously paint really slowly, but it just takes time. But it's more of a case of it's the skill of it, and it's being able to appreciate it. And you basically know that everybody's put in hard work in for everything, basically. I mean, there's very few times you come up against somebody and you think, oh, they've not spent a lot of time on their army. I think
Yeah,
everybody has, and it's just everybody's own standards and own time frames.
yeah. Because you've got a couple of non-film colour schemes, if I remember correctly.
So that's probably the thing that I like the most. It's doing something different, and it might be the fact that I can't paint dull browns and do two different shades of brown. So I've got to think outside of the box and go, well, how can I actually paint them? Like the Army of the Dead ended up as rainbow colored because I just couldn't paint a few different shades of just one color. I was like, that's just not going to happen. It's not going to work. So I'll just try and come up with something to make it look different. And you just sort of run with it, really.
I was going to say I've painted the like 50 Army of the Dead, and yeah, it was laborious. It's probably the way to put it.
I mean, I painted my Goblin Town, and they're not the standard coloured, but they were just a slog because they're all the same colour. And
What colour are they?
they're green.
Okay, I don't think I've seen them.
Yes, I played with them a bit previously. I don't think I've really used goblins much in the last
Okay.
couple of years. But yeah, they're green because I realised that I couldn't paint a pale shade of flesh. So I was like, green's fine. I'm playing them with my Moria anyway. Might as well be green. And then people are like, oh, you're green goblins. And I'm like, yeah, it's just because it was the easiest thing to paint.
Yeah, I was going to say green goblins kind of fits anyway. So
Yeah.
that moves us quite nicely onto your collection. like, do you know the size of your collection?
I did work it out a few months ago. I think it was in the range of tens of thousands of points.
Okay.
It was big, and then I was thinking about the cost of that, and I was like, I don't really want to think about the cost of that.
I was going to say, literally in the last week, I've done a physical count of my collection, and yeah, it's slightly scary to know what I've got. And putting a price against that is just a terrifying thought.
Yeah. Oh, but then if I think about, I have been collecting since I started, so
Yeah.
there is a longer period of time in that, and some of it is just got your ends of warriors or multiples of heroes.
Yeah.
But even so, there's a lot of points there.
Yeah. I was going to say, like I said, I've done a physical model count, and I was thinking about putting points against them, and I just thought that would just get ridiculous.
I mean, you should do it. If you use the spreadsheets out there, then you can just very easily tick them off, and it gives a good little like spreadsheet to keep hold of anyway.
Yeah, I figured out I've got just under 2,600 models.
Wow.
I have no idea. Like I said, I have no idea what that equates to in points. But like I said, I've been collecting for 16, 17 years, a similar length of time to yourself. So yeah, it all adds up. It all adds up. I'm pretty sure I've got some Warriors and Ministerials from like my first box around somewhere. Some of them are broken, some of them aren't.
Oh, I've got so many high elves that are broken from the
Yeah.
Last Alliance set that was out originally, but I've still used half of them.
Yeah. I was going to say I've got a big box. I think it's, which one again? I think it's that box there. It's just broken models. And not even counting them, just broken models. So which armies do you use the most out of your collection?
It's quite a mix really, because I always get bored if I play the same army, so I want to try and play as many different ones as I can. At the moment, I think my go-to, if I want to do well, is Minas Tirith. I used to play goblins quite a lot, but then Barney played goblins better than me, and I was like, I'm not playing them at the best anymore.
I was going to say, I know I've definitely played your Minas Tirith once, I think.
Yeah, with your Angmar.
Yeah, that was at Reading 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember it was the Denethor LSR list, if I'm correct.
Which is now banned.
Yes. Actually, that's a good point. Didn't think of that. And I've seen you play Mordor as well a few times.
Yeah, I played my Mordor quite a bit, especially even the run-up to the ETC, because I knew that's what I was going to take. So
Okay.
got practicing with that. But yeah, I don't really own many of the Hobbit armies, but I've got a lot of the Lord of the Rings ones, and I just like to change through them, and I'll find something new and just run with it for a bit.
Yeah. So do you find yourself taking the same armies to kind of a couple of consecutive events and then changing up to something different?
No, so I'll generally look ahead, and then I pick an army to suit the tournament, or if it's not a very big tournament, then I'll pick an army for fun that I want to try, or there's a particular model that I want to play. But I think in the second half of last year, I think for 9 consecutive tournaments, I took a completely different army.
Oh, nice.
So that was quite rewarding.
I was going to say, and I know you're always kind of near the top tables as well, so to take different armies lots of different times and still get to the similar position, it shows kind of obviously competence with a multitude of different armies.
Well, that's kind of what I like the most, really. So I had a look through, and I think over the last year, I've played like 14 tournaments. I went through and I've played like 12 completely different army lists. Like,
nice.
I used something like 37 heroes, like a total of 70 profiles. And I was like, yeah, this looks pretty good. And then I managed to podium with like half of those events. So now I'm almost got like, in my cabinet, I'm like, that's got on the podium, that's got on the podium. That's not. I need to try and find a list to make that work now.
So what's your favourite miniature that you own? That can be because of the sculpt, the painting, the profile, whatever. Kind of, what is your prized possession?
So I love the Huron model.
Yeah.
That's really cool. The mounted one
I was gonna say
specifically. Yeah, that's really nice. But if my favourite ones would have to be the ones that I've converted to be different.
Yeah.
So I took King Elisar and Elendil, and then made them into Knights of the White Tower with heads from the Guard of the Fountain Court, and they turned out really well. And it was like, oh wow, these just look really cool.
Yeah.
And then obviously the only thing that I've really enjoyed doing is the Disney Princess Pirates.
I was going to say, that's your battle company, correct?
Yeah. So the Merkwood Rangers, I love the models for the Merkwood Rangers.
Yeah.
And also they're like pretty much the only female sculpts in the range, basically, apart from like Gladriel, but doesn't look like a fighter.
Non-hero ones, I think they are.
Yeah, but even if you're just looking for female models for a starting point.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got Arwen, Galadriel, Eowyn.
Yeah, that's about it, really.
Yeah.
But the Merkwood Rangers, they're really, really nice models to start with anyway.
Yes.
So yeah.
Nice. What's the most underrated model in your collection? Do you think that your opponents kind of not second guess or ignore, but one that you think people don't give enough thought to?
Hold on, can I go put the light on? Because it's getting quite dark now.
Yeah. You carry on.
I didn't realise how dark it was getting.
I was going to say, I noticed that with my first one with Dan and Whistle. Suddenly looked at my webcam with it, I'm sat in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your most underrated model?
In terms of what it looks like?
Looks or profile. So like
I think in terms of looks, the Cave Drake, I really like the Cave Drake model. That's really nice. I'm annoyed that I haven't found a better way to make it work at the moment.
What is in lists?
In lists, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do really like that model. But in terms of what underrated to play with, I don't know really. I mean, I guess a lot of the things I've played with aren't particularly underrated. So I'm not really sure. Maybe Arrester?
Yeah.
I think he's really good.
Yeah.
He's like a cool elf hero that you don't really see very often.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any specific models that you wish could come back on a made to order or come back into the range like permanently?
So I have no idea what has been on a made to order, what is on a made to order, and what could be on a made to order, because I just picked up such a random set of models originally, because we never really collected armies per se. Things like Círdan and Kardish, I just randomly happened to have them. So when Decay came out, I wasn't like there was anything that I've thought, oh, I've missed it and need it kind of thing. So I've not really paid attention to them.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I think there's definitely having as much come back as possible is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm the same with like Beregond and Dalamir. I don't know when I got them. I don't know how I got them, but I've got them. So.
I don't want any models to be like super rare out there, and then people can't collect a certain army because there's one particular model that's really important to that army that they can't get. And I know that happened with Círdan, and that was part of why he was so controversial. It's because people were like, oh my gosh, he's OP, but also we can't get him.
I was going to say, it's a good thing the made to order came around and him and Kardish were in it. That was the one with Halbrand as well, wasn't it? With the banner and the horn. That was going for like £300 or something.
I don't know if anybody would pay £300 for that.
No, and then
But
it came back on the made to order for like 15 quid.
yeah.
And it was like, yeah, no brainer. Cool. So
I guess I've missed my chance to sell all my models then.
I was going to say that I was exactly the same. I got back into the game really probably about 5 years ago, and was picking up out of production models, so like your Arbalesters, your blowpipes, all that kind of stuff. And I got them all when they were out of production, and now they're all back. I'm like, kind of a bit annoyed, but also I don't really care because then everyone else can play them. So yeah, that does bother me.
Also, Mahud and fiefdoms you don't really see very often, but they're really cool armies.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one of my main go-tos. It's
Yeah.
It's fiefdoms, Mahud, and Angmar are my three
I think fiefdoms
really
and
lovely
Mahud would
armies.
be two that I'd want to play because they're just super cool, but they are quite expensive
Yeah.
to get, which is a draw side. But like fiefdoms is really, really cool with the knights and everything.
Yeah, but like I said, I've managed to get 24 clansmen for one of the scenarios. That took me a little while to get.
Oh, really? You were looking for just clansmen? Because at one point I was looking for just axemen, but now they're in the same set.
Yeah,
I was like, if I wanted to ally one warband of axemen into my Minas Tirith army, I'll have a look. And then I was like, oh, I can't really afford paying for all these clansmen that I'm not going to use.
Yeah. No, I was quite lucky. I had 12 clansmen originally, then found 3 brand new and blister on eBay, pretty cheap, like tenner maybe. And then I ended up doing a swap with Chris Murphy for some. So I won a voucher at a tournament in Bristol, and they had a Warriors of the Fiefdoms pack. Used my voucher, and then traded 3 Axemen and 3 Citadel Guard to Chris Murphy, who had 30 clansmen for some reason. I think it was for 7 stones or something like that. And then traded them for him. So he still had 24 to do the scenario, and then I had 24. So yeah, that's probably my most ridiculous. I've got 26 metal foot knights as well.
Wow.
Yeah, some of them were quite expensive. Moving swiftly on. So moving on to kind of the gaming side of things now, which I know you'll have a lot more opinions on. So firstly, do you play any other systems other than SVG?
Gaming, no, but we love our board games.
Nice.
Which I guess is like a similar thing.
Yeah.
Because in reality, SBG is just a big board.
Yeah, pretty much. Are there any particular board games you like?
Oh God, there's loads out there, but I think my favourite one is Everdell, which is just about creating a little animal town, and it's just super cute with tiny little meeples, and it's got like a 3D tree as like the board, and it's just like, it was originally like out of production, and I was like, I need to get hold of this board game. And then they said they were making a reprint because they have an expansion. I was like, oh, finally. And then when it came and I played it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually a great game as well as just like looking cool. But yeah, because it's me, my brother, and then my mum and my dad, and we play loads of board games. So between us, we've got like probably like 100 or something ridiculous. So, but yeah, the thing is as well is like, people think board games have to be really difficult and complicated, but they're not. And there's loads of games out there that are great, and that would be a great alternative for people to play other than Monopoly, which seems to be the only one that people have ever heard of.
I was going to say, I know I've got friends who've got kind of zombie type apocalypse games, and another one like a kind of a bumper car game where you're in teams of 2, and you both have different controls for your car. So like someone has the turning, but someone else has the go forward, and whoever has the go forward doesn't have the brake, and you have to like
Oh.
allocate. It's just chaos. It's just chaos. Because someone's trying to turn, but the other person's gone full speed ahead, so you kind of career into rocks or whatnot, and it's just very amusing.
Wow. I mean, there is literally whatever you can think of, there is a board game for it.
Yeah.
Like I really like my spicy food, and then I saw this board game in a shop that was called Scoville, and it was about growing the hottest chilies, and I was like, what? I didn't even know that could be a game. It is a game, and it's a good game. So
Nice.
yeah. And then if there isn't one, just make one yourself. So
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard of plenty of people adjusting rules and house rules on games anyway. So
I made a whole game for my brother for Christmas one year because he was really like squash. Just shout out to Ali for mentioning squash. But yeah, I just designed a whole board game for him. So that was quite a lot of fun to do.
Nice. That's always good. I'm in the process of doing a kind of secret project for my wedding that's coming up in March. So it's all kind of hobby related. No models, well, no actual SVG models, but it's kind of terrain pieces. So that's going to occupy some time in the near future.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
Yeah. There'll be plenty of photos once they're done. There'll be plenty
Good.
of photos once they're done.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I like is just people using their imagination.
Yeah.
And it was Damien and Tom, they did their Frozen version, and they made Frozen profiles, and it's just doing something different. I just love that.
It is those magazines do make me chuckle. So you've touched on it a little bit earlier, but do you play more competitively or more for fun, or a bit of both?
I like playing competitively probably most, but equally I'm more than happy just to meet up with people and just have a game and just always make that game fun, really, whether it be take something different or just if somebody's not played the game very long, just as you go, just don't try and hard win the game, because there's no point of that, because you won't get anything out of it, they won't get anything out of it. So I like playing a whole variety, really, and like I said, just getting to play some different people as well.
Yeah, because you're based around Nottingham, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you've got a nice community going there. Do you go to Wangerwood more than anywhere else? Or?
I used to, but now the Seventh City shop, that's literally just down the road.
Oh, nice.
But there's a few of us that played Battle Companies, and the people that played Battle Companies used it as like an introduction to the game.
Yeah.
And now they're getting into playing more of the actual armies. But I have fun playing with them, and it's fun to see them pick up the game and improve literally like week on week. And it's like just little tips there that it's like just like, oh, you want to keep your banner in base contact, for example, and then seeing that player pick it up and then do it from there on is quite rewarding as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Have you played Sean Creed yet?
I think I have, yeah.
Yeah, so Sean I've known since the first week of uni, so coming up 10 years, which is a scary thought. And he was a 40k player, and for one of his birthdays I said, right, here's some Rohan models, get started and have some games, because he wasn't playing any 40k around here. And yeah, watching him improve, I know exactly what you mean. It's suddenly like, okay, when we were first playing, kind of, I'll give you a game, but I'm expecting in my head to win. And now you've got to really, really think about it. And it's like, oh, God.
But that's good, because now you've got somebody who actually will give you a challenging game as well.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
Obviously a friend too.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you choose an army for to start, let's say, would you choose it based on the miniatures or the rules or a combination of both?
I think a lot for me is the fact that I started with like a base of a lot of different armies. So I've never really started a new army completely recently, but I think cost definitely has a big factor in it.
Yeah.
Like whenever new people come in, I always say to them, it's like, I just don't recommend a certain army because it's expensive. Like Isengard, Minas Tirith, you can pick the troops up for nothing, and then you can get your skills from that and then see what you want to play afterwards.
Especially with your kind of, I would say, Mordor, Rohan, Isengard, and Minas Tirith. Even the heroes are quite cheap as well because you can find the old ones on eBay, etc.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's not the fact that you're not saying you're never going to buy more expensive models. It's just going, oh well, I get to learn more about the game to start with.
Yeah.
So it's different armies do different things, but like I think that's part of the reason why I wasn't a fan of Iron Hills. It's because it was all Forge World model stuff. Yeah. It's almost like creating it so that certain people can get that army, which is fine because they're nice models and that's part of the game.
Yeah.
But definitely, if there are armies out there that are cheaper to get.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
At least initially, anyway.
Yeah.
But now I'll just spend time theorizing lists that I'll never actually play and just think that's really good.
Yeah, no, I do get what you mean. I think for someone getting into the hobby, going for an army that is cheap, especially if they don't end up liking it, they don't feel way out of pocket.
But also cheap that's versatile. And that's where it's the thing with your Mordor, your Isengard. It's after the basic troops, you can add completely different heroes and it makes it a completely different army.
Yeah.
And again, with like your Mordor orcs, you can just put them into an Angmar army.
Yeah.
And then you're almost getting like 2 armies for 1.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I agree with that. Unless you do crazy things like me and paint different orcs for different armies. Yeah. Perfectionist and OCD doesn't help. So, do you think there are any factions that I'm going in like a pure sense now? Any factions or legendary legions that you think are top tier?
There's one that I think is too good.
Yeah.
And that would be the Riders of Theoden one.
Yeah.
And that's based on the fact that gambling, in my mind, is probably the only truly overcosted model there is at the moment. Because if you think about the fact that if let's say a point of might is worth 5 points, which it generally is, and you're getting 20 might points back every turn or more, it's kind of silly, really. And then you throw in Dernhelm. Dernhelm is okay. With gambling, it's 2 might points a turn. It's like, well, that's ridiculous.
It is insane.
And I know it's not the easiest army to learn because it's all mounted, but if you play it well, then I think it's definitely probably one of the best armies out there.
Yeah.
But in my mind, gambling should be 1 hero, get some might point back at the end of the turn. Or he loses his heroic defense, which makes him so hard to kill, and then it means the player's got to protect their gambling better. Yeah.
I was going to say, I've heard a few people say it, but I've not seen Rise of Theoden win that many tournaments.
I've not seen that many top players take it.
That's a very good point. Yeah, you see it.
And I've played against it a few times, and I've seen my opponent make mistakes. They've not played bad, but they've made crucial mistakes, and I've thought, well, if you did it that way, you could definitely have beaten me.
Yeah, that seems so.
I mean, especially the first time you should just go in, cool death, use all your might points, heroic combats everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you decimated somebody's army before they even have a chance to come back.
Yeah, I've played with it once in a practice game, and I ended up killing my opponent too quickly. So I think that's part of it as well, is knowing when to keep killing and when to go and try and do what the scenario needs.
Yeah, I mean, you if you're always looking for the objectives, then, but in terms of what that army can do, if you're talking about if everybody's playing it to their army's best of its ability, I don't think there's a better army than that one. Personally, I've not played with or against the Rangers, so I don't have any huge strong feelings against them. I know that lots of people say that they're impossible to beat at low points. They might be.
Yeah, I took them at 650, and that. Yeah, I had some veterans in my list as well, so I wanted a bit of defense 6, but I lost hold ground to an Oblak Scouts list. But that again, that was me not playing the army very much and not moving forward quickly enough. Do you think there are any armies that are just below the Riders of Theoden then in that kind of second?
I think most armies are really competitive. I don't think there's very few that I would think that, oh no, you wouldn't be able to podium with them. And then I think there's just such a huge variety. Like Angmar is probably the army that shows player skill the most because it's very tactical and it's high risk, high reward kind of army. Whereas you could then just build like a solid Minas Tirith horde on the other hand. But yeah, I can't think of many armies that I wouldn't put right up there and go, you could definitely podium with them. Because a lot of it's just about taking the right list to the right tournament as well.
Yeah, and that's it. Tournaments come down to a bit of luck with scenario and opposing army, to be honest. Because you could get an army that you're really good against in a certain scenario and really bad against in another one. So,
but even then, not all. I mean, now that we've got the match play guide, I think we'll see most people using that. But before, or quite often people still do, they put their own custom scenarios in, or they name the scenarios that are going to happen. And then it almost allows you to build your team more towards that tournament in particular. So I think it was Barney's event last year. A lot of it was objective based and getting to objectives. So I just went, I'll just take a really, really fast moving, lots of numbers army. It doesn't mean it's the best army at 650 points. It meant it was the best army at 650 points based on the conditions that we're playing for in that tournament.
Yeah, definitely agree. If you know the scenarios beforehand, unless you want to really challenge yourself, then you're going to tailor your list to win those scenarios.
Yeah, but I think probably most armies have a chance of doing well.
Yeah, I've seen,
which is great. The fact that I'm like, there's one or two models that I think makes one army too good, which it hasn't won that many tournaments, so it might not even be so. Kind of says that the game's in a good place, really.
Yeah, most definitely. I was going to say my next question is about overpowered models. This is overpowered in the sense that they're within their pure faction, so they can get their army bonus and any other models that could buff them. Is there any others by Gamling that you can think of? You personally?
I'd say Azog and Bolg may be a little bit too good because they're fight 7.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm using a similar good hero, but is more points that has a lower fight. You can't ever duel them. Yeah. It's just impossible to. And it kind of creates a problem with that, really. They're good, especially for the points that they've got. I'd also say Thorin on Goat, with the ability to heroic combat for how many points he costs, and is basically very little risk because he's such high defense that if you make a mistake, you're not really getting punished for it.
I was going to say, it's not going to die in a turn, is it?
Well, rarely. So I think the fact that he's never punished for it means that he's very, very good. And if you go down, I think maybe one of the the other very, very powerful models is the Merkwith Spiders,
Yes.
which I love and I like to play them. But in terms of what they can actually do for how much they cost, I will just try to ally them in if I can.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So
For 20 points?
20 points to 1 in 3 chance, just paralyze the Balrog or Sauron.
Yeah.
I'd take that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not even like when you resist it either.
Also, if you read the rules carefully, it says that they can use a fate in the normal manner of fate, which means that it's a pure 50-50. They can't use more fate either.
Okay. That's really interesting.
It doesn't say they just spend a fate point and ignore it. It says they have to roll it in the normal manner of fate.
Wow. Never. I don't know any Merkwood Spiders, and I've not played against them, so I can't say I've read up on the rules too much. But that's really interesting.
There go, probably a bit too good.
Yeah. So, what's your favourite points level to play? And
Pretty much anywhere between 700 and 800, because it's at that point that you've got the option to bring big models without automatically being penalised for bringing them, but at the same time you don't have to bring them, but then you also have really difficult choices, so you can't just go two massive things like an Azog and a Bolg and generally do well with that. You have choices to make, but you've got enough choices to make, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. I do find, to be fair, I enjoy 700 to 800 probably the most. Like I say, you just get more guys in and more fun stuff. So
I think 400 to 450 doesn't work as a game. And I've played tournaments at those levels. It's like, well, there's not really enough in the list, and it's pretty much a bit too much luck. And at 500, I think that's when it's okay.
I was going to say 450. I struggle to write lists that I'm happy with. I always want like an extra guy here or an extra guy there.
Yeah, I also think that once you get to that 700 mark, there's enough variables in the game that it allows for player difference to have more of an impact.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Your player skill comes into it rather than at 450 you botch a dice with someone and they die and you're suddenly like, well, there's my hero gone.
I mean, that can still happen. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but
of course it can.
It's going to happen less, and also you're not just looking for that one play on one side of the board. You've got two plays, and you can pull two things off or bring them together, kind of thing. So it's like at 450, you might only have the option of heroic combating with one hero.
Yeah.
But at 700, you've got two heroes that could combat into the same person. And then it's things like that that makes it more tactical.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's more things to keep an eye on and keep control of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because sometimes when trophy heroes are on one flank, your other flank, you just kind of like, I just move these guys here and not really pay attention to them. Whereas,
yeah, and the game's about heroes fundamentally. And if you're at 450, you're only getting one or two heroes. It's not, it doesn't allow for that gameplay to really sort of develop.
Yeah, I also think for some of the scenarios, like Assassination and Fog of War.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great example. Like Fog of War, if you've only got two heroes, then there's no choices to make, is there?
No.
And therefore it kind of limits the scenario.
Everyone knows what you're trying to do. Like both of you know what you're trying to do and what you're trying to kill. Assassination's the same. But yeah, you can't. I would say I do like 450. To be honest, I just like Into the West because that's 450 points is just where I go into the West, Cardiff, the weekend. That's what I love. But yeah, I don't think I would choose to play for 50 otherwise. If I'm having a game at home or etc., it's normally 500 and up, if we can, 600 and up.
Yeah, I mean, 500's okay if you've only got one day, for example, and
Yeah.
you don't want games to be too long. So that's where I say 500's fine. It's not my preferred,
Yeah.
but it's where the game, for me at least, starts to work as a game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true.
And 1,250 is too much, by the way, for a champion. It's just your brain, by that point, it's too much happening. There's too many models just to move physically.
Did you go to that tournament?
I did, and by the end of that tournament, I was absolutely shattered. I was
Because
like,
what were they 3 hour games?
there were at least 2.5,
Yeah.
maybe 2:45. But it was just, yeah. At that point, it's like, oh my gosh, like.
What did you take to that out of interest?
Took a Minas Tirith horde, so
Oh
it's
God.
basically Boromir with his banner, every hero that can take strike, and then 2 trebuchets.
Nice. Nice.
I mean, I've worked out that at 1,000 points plus, because Minas Tirith has all of those heroes with strike,
Yeah.
you can just spam them out, and you get what, like 18 might points, and all of them have strike. So you just go into somebody's hero and you go, okay, I'll take this hero in. If they die, oh well, I've got more points. I'll just do it again.
Because which hero is that? Boromir, Faramir.
Don't take Faramir.
Okay, Boromir, Ingold.
Boromir, Hurin,
Yeah.
Ingold, Kirian,
Yeah.
even a Knight of the White Tower.
I was going to say, because he's got his 200 mighty blow, isn't he?
Yep, and if he's near Boromir, he's getting 3 dice. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they've been hit and miss, to be honest.
I was going to say.
Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But
Yeah, glass cannon.
yeah.
So talking of tournaments, what awards, do you think should be given out at tournaments?
Definitely the podiums.
Yeah.
Definitely most sporting. I think the most sporting is probably the most important award.
Yeah.
And I think I'd definitely like to now win most sporting over a tournament, because it's harder, because it's not in your control. But you genuinely have to earn that award, because what I say is everybody's so sporting. And that's why I wanted the change for the GT. It wasn't on the basis that I was like, well, it's not fair. It's unfair on the fact that everybody's sporting. How can you separate people from actual tournament standings?
I was going to say, especially in a grand tournament.
Yeah. And I do agree with Ali where he said that you rate somebody.
Yeah.
But even that has flaws in itself.
Yeah. I don't think there's a perfect way of doing it, to be honest.
There's really not. And that's just because you're going to have struggle marking somebody down most of the time.
Yeah.
And even if you do a ranking system, it's like, well, if 5 points is they weren't not sporting, how many times would you say that in a game?
Yeah.
Basically all of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So then obviously you got the painting, which is great.
Yeah.
Again, best painted and best army come up a lot in tournaments.
Yeah.
But people don't ever vote for best army. It's just mostly done on painting.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see more of a distinction between them.
I think it was Ali who was saying he's got a good distinction between it. I can't remember who. I think it was Ali. But it was something.
Yeah.
It was something like best painted is obviously what looks the best on the table, and best army is kind of the one you want to take home.
Yeah, I think that's okay. But for me personally, what I want to see is somebody's effort or imagination put into it, something that's different, something that I've not seen before. So, for example, you'll occasionally see on the Facebook page, I don't know, somebody made a Mummikill into a Diplodocus,
Yes.
which was just amazing, both in terms of thinking to do it and actually doing it well.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I don't know how you'd have that award, but for me, just something different kind of thing. And almost if it's not voted for, if it's given out by the TO as
Yeah.
like oh, I can see that you've made either A, a really big effort, or B, done something completely different and done it well.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to see that.
I was going to say that's a really good way of putting it, actually. Having a TO decide best army is probably a better way of doing it because they know what they want to look for.
Yeah, I mean, definitely have the painting, and that is done by the voting system that we've got.
Yeah.
But then maybe have an award that's not voted for, because not everything perhaps needs to be voted for. And it also allows the TO a little bit of control because they've set out the rule pack. They might have set the rule pack for a theme or whatever, and somebody's met that. So
yeah, definitely agree. So do you prefer playing good versus evil or blue on blue?
So when I first played in the GBHL, like after taking a break from the game, and I was like, it's not good versus evil. I was like, I can't comprehend this. Like, what is this? This is madness. Over time, I've come to like it more, and I understand why we do it.
Yeah.
And it's better for new players and getting people to play and making it really involved. But for me, it has to be good versus evil.
Yeah.
Also, my record in good versus evil is extraordinary compared to without, and it's just because it allows you to tailor your armies more.
Yeah.
And I guess part of the reason why I tend to do well is I just take the right armies. It was like the GT, it's like, well, it's good versus evil. Lady of the Light is probably going to give me a lot more in this format. So therefore, I'll take her and find her way to play her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just the rules are written that way. And for me personally, it's kind of the essence of the game. But
Yeah.
I'm okay.
It's the whole story, isn't it?
I'm okay with playing blue on blue now.
Got used to it.
I mean, I had to really if I wanted to play. So
yeah, like you said, I think for new players, a good versus evil tournament is more difficult.
It's more difficult for collecting, getting it, painting it, but also playing it as well.
Yeah.
Because then they've got to learn two armies, and for some people, that's too much. Especially if it's their first tournament, whereas they can turn up to one tournament and go, "Oh, I kind of know what this army does, and my models for this army."
Yeah. I also think that some people don't like to play evil. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone who doesn't like to play good. But I've heard of plenty of people who go, "Oh, I don't own an evil army," because they obviously affiliate with the Fellowship or Lawrence Company or just some other good hero, and they just don't want to. They just don't want an evil army.
But the bad guys need love too. There'd be no stories or battles without them. And so a lot of them don't choose the situation they're in. They're just making the best situation that they've got.
Just trying to earn a living.
Do you think the Orc Shaman truly wants to be evil? Probably not. He's just like, well, can I save these orcs? I'm fighting for my future.
I'm fighting so that the guy in front of me stays alive so I don't die.
Exactly. And you can't run away because otherwise you then just get killed by Sauron. He's like, what are you doing?
So we are coming out of lockdown. We're recording this mid-July. So we're easing out of lockdown at the moment. Are there any upcoming events that you're hoping to attend later in the year?
I mean, it's difficult to say at the moment. I think I've got a couple that have been moved. So I think I know the Wiltshire one. They really want to get that going, and they basically put everything in place, but obviously we just didn't know of things, so
Yeah.
it's all been moved back. So yeah, to be honest, I just like getting out to any tournament really.
Yeah.
It's local, it helps because you don't have to organise accommodation or whatever,
Yeah.
which is just, it kind of just makes an added level of stress, whereas you just want to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
For me personally anyway, I know other people like travelling to other cities, which is nice and I do enjoy it, but like I said, it's like another factor to consider
Yeah,
really.
it's extra time and cost, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just so much the cost, because you just factor it in and you say, oh, well, if you look at the entertainment for the weekend, it's
Yeah.
still amazingly cheap entertainment, but it's just, you've got to think, where am I going? Like, do I have enough time from my last game to get to my accommodation, to put everything away, to then go out for dinner?
Yeah.
And whilst if you get on with everybody and it's good company, it's those small things that it's like, well, I could just do without them, really.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're quite lucky in the Nottingham area. You're kind of in the middle of most of the tournaments. For us, we've started down south. We've started putting more kind of single day tournaments, especially the last couple of years, kind of in the Bristol. I think there was going to be one in Swindon and Oxford and Reading and that kind of area. But yeah, for us, if we want to go away for the weekend, if it's not Cardiff, it's Manchester or Nottingham, which is 4 hours.
Yeah.
So
I
definitely
mean,
worth it though.
the fact that you've done one day events, like, it's allowed me to come down just for the day, even though it's
Yeah,
quite a long drive.
yeah.
It's sort of a different option. So I'm quite a fan of having one day events here and there, because then you're
Yeah.
just not committing so much.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Have you managed to get any games in recently?
Not recently,
Not recently.
but I'm going to play this week.
Oh, nice.
So that's good. And also, I've been able to join a social bubble.
Oh,
If you're
excellent.
listening to this in 2 weeks' time, this like, that make no sense. You're like, what? What's a
Yeah.
social bubble? Or it might be a case of we're back in lockdown again. Who
Yeah.
knows? But yeah, I can join my brother's household.
Oh, nice.
So obviously he plays.
Yeah.
He's saved up all his holiday days because there's been no need to take any holiday days. So he's now told me that he's not working Fridays from now until the end of the year.
Nice.
So I was like, I know what I'm doing then.
Yeah, most definitely.
Have you played? Because I saw you posted you were playing one outside.
I've played. I've managed to get 3 days in actually. So yeah, so me and Luke played outside under a gazebo. That was 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was quite interesting because my garden has no shade, so the gazebo was definitely worth it. And we picked like one of the hottest days of the year. So yeah, that was excellent. So we had one game and then we just sat down, just chatting, and we were like, we're not going to play another one.
That's where you're like, why aren't tournaments outside? And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh wait, because if it did rain.
If it did rain, we're all in trouble. And if it gets too hot, we're all in trouble again. Then I played a scenario and a normal game against David Clubley. He came over and we played in my garage, which is nice and large, and we opened the door. And then I went and played with Luke yesterday at his house, which was cool. And there was photos I put on the Guardians page and shared to the GHL. It was the Boromir Forlong Imrahil against the Balrog, and it did not go well for the good guys.
No, what were you playing the good?
Yeah, so quickly summing up the pictures, I charged all 3 heroes into the Balrog, spent 2 points to strike, so that takes me down to 10 might. Then spent 9 might to cause 9 wounds, and I won the roll off on the strike because I got to fight 10. And then the following turn, I didn't strike, and Luke rolled a 6. He rolled a 6 in every fight with the Balrog. It was really, really annoying. And then he killed Imrahil, and then the following turn he heroic combated off Boromir and killed Forlorn. Oh yeah, and that was it. I had 7 points of fate and failed every single one of them.
That does not help.
No, so it was quite amusing. I was like, yes, I'm going well, going well, going well. Oh, it's really not going well.
The first time we tried out the Balrog in a practice game, sent Glorfindel in,
Yeah.
and then the Balrog won the fight, and it was like, oh, I'll just rend you. Oh no, wait, I can't because you're special armor.
Oh yeah.
But don't worry, it makes no difference anyway because it's still 3s and then just 4 wounds. And it was like, oh, Glorfindel's dead.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's not how the books wrote it.
Yeah, it's just like if the Balrog doesn't get a 6, it's not that bad. But yeah, Luke was just. There was always one dice getting a 6. I think on one of them he even went 1, 1, 1, 6. I was like, oh great. But yeah, no. So yeah, I've had a couple of games. It's been good to get back into it, and yeah, hopefully.
But I think more than anything, it's not about the actual game; it's the fact that you've been able to socialise.
Yeah, meet up with friends. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. We're still abiding by the 1 meter plus and all that kind of jazz, and making sure we're washing hands, etc., and only trying to touch our own models. That was one thing that we made kind of a bit clear from the start. And yeah, like I say, it's nice. It's nice to be able to just chat about something that's not locked down.
Yeah, I think everyone's got to that point where it's like, well, we're talking about what's on the news, but it's just the same things on the news, or it's things we don't want on the news. And nobody had anything else to talk about. There was no sport, there was no TV because there was no more TV shows to put out, and everyone was just getting fed up, really.
I was going to say, it's nice that everything's coming back.
Yeah.
So moving on to the community side of things, is there a player or a specific army that the player plays, or just a specific army in general that you struggle to play against, or you don't necessarily have a winning record
against? I don't think there's anything in particular. There's a number of players that are good and that you're like, I always get a hard game.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that I think I definitely can't win that.
Yeah.
Obviously dependent on the scenario.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think so really.
Is there a player who you've played quite a lot who you seem to not have a losing record against, but always go, they've always pipped me like every time just?
I've never done particularly well against Ed.
Okay.
Part of that was to start with when he was playing his Nazgul Fell Beast and was getting Lords of Battle against my goblins, and I was like, this isn't ideal really. So I think he's the one player that I'm in the past not done well against.
Okay.
But then just I think everybody else, it's sort of you sort of have an even number really between the good players.
Yeah. So on a similar vein, is there a player who you've played against who you would say is the best player you've ever played against, or someone who's just done something out of the blue that you didn't quite catch?
I think more than ever, we've now got a group of players that are all capable of winning tournaments, and they're on their day that they can win them all. I think Jay probably makes fewer mistakes than most people I've played, and it's that trying to find the advantage is harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's players that I've just not played enough to really say. Like some players have only played maybe twice or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I know they're a good player, but we've not really played a great deal of number of times. So yeah.
Like I say, I definitely think it's not just the top 2 anymore.
Oh, it's definitely not just the top 2. There's maybe like the top 5 that could win the league, but then there's like a top 15 that could win 100-point events.
Yeah.
Which is great. So, and I think last year, when you looked at how many different 100-point winners there were, it's like, wow, that's great for the game.
Yeah. Because what was there, 20 tournaments and something like 13 different winners, 14 different winners?
Yeah, I think it took like half the year just to get a repeat winner.
Yeah, I was going to
Which,
say, I remember it getting to like eight tournaments in, eight different winners, like this single
yeah,
point events. It's definitely interesting, and like I say, I agree with you. There is a group of them at the very top, and then there is a significant group below, who, to be honest, I think that's where we would fit in.
I think I put myself as a bit hit and miss. So when I have a
Okay.
good tournament, I do really well. But then there's easily times when I make too many mistakes and I'm not quite there.
Yeah, I
So
was going to say sometimes you're on the ball and sometimes you're not. That's just how life goes.
yeah.
Because I think you picked me to 11th by like point one, was it, in the league last year?
I can't remember.
I'm going
I
to
think
find
it
this because
I
I have
think it
a
was
feeling.
like 2 years ago that I lost out. I went into the final tournament and I was like, oh, I'm basically guaranteed top 10 unless this unlikely run of events happens. And then like it happened. And I was like, oh, great. So I finished 11th. I might have finished a bit lower last year.
Oh, I have a feeling. I will grab the. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? 2019 standings. I'll have a look now because I have a feeling. Oh no, it was the other way around. I thought you picked me. No, there is point one between us over God knows how many times. Yeah, I went to 7, you went to 15, and there was point one between us.
Yeah. For me, it's all about just making sure I can play the Masters because
Yeah,
that
I,
event
I,
is
was,
so fun.
I was going to say I couldn't attend this year. Um, I was wanting to, but it just didn't fall within work and all of that kind of jazz. So
The Masters is it's a different kind of tournament because
yeah,
you
because
know
that's the
your first
knockout
round
one, isn't
opponent.
it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
because
think that was the I
you
think that
played
was the
Ali.
most that was the most fun I have ever had writing a tournament list because I was like, I basically know what Ali's going to take. There's a 5% chance he might be bluffing, so I'm not going to tell him what I'm going to take. I'm just going to feed him misinformation. I kept telling him I was taking Boromir, even though Boromir is bad into the dwarves. I was like, oh yeah, I'll just take my minister. If I take Boromir, try and double bluff him. I was secretly, whilst trying to work on a team, I was like, what can beat his dwarves? And I never had so much fun. And then I found the army, and I was like,
Because
this
you
new
used
army,
the assault on
the
Helm's Deep, didn't you?
yeah, the assault on Helm's Deep, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I found it. I think I found the army. And then we had like a Facebook chat, and for like 2 weeks until the deadline, I was like desperately just trying not to say anything because I was like, if I say something, he'll change his army. And then as soon as the deadline passed, I just was like, sat there so smug as everybody was then like, what? I was not expecting this army. And I was like, yes, I done it.
Because what was it, 500 points?
Yeah, 500 points.
So do you take a bomb and a ballista?
A bomb and a ballista.
Yeah.
And I knew that the army at 500 points wasn't good enough to win the tournament, but my aim was
To
I'm
be
the lower
Ali.
ranked player. If I win my first round, then I've beaten my ranking.
Yeah.
And I just want to try and beat Ali because I've literally just made a list that beats his list. So once I won that first game, I was like, oh, cool, that's all good. Doesn't really matter how it goes from here. But then after I started using that army for the Masters, or once I did a practice game with it, I was like, oh, this army's actually
It's
really good
strong.
at higher points. And
It's
then
strong.
I got like a last minute ticket to the GT, and I was like,
Oh, did you?
I was
Ah,
like
okay.
2 weeks before or whatever I got off the waiting list, and I was like, okay, cool. All I want to do is just win 3 games with my evil army. I don't really care. And I was like, last week I was like, I have to think of a good army now. But I went into it and I was like, just this evil army is just so different and fun. And I was
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
I was going to say, I've had a couple of games of it and it is great fun.
Oh yeah, but it's once you play with it and then you start learning just how much more
Yeah.
there is. and how it just doesn't do the same things, and it's like, oh, okay, this is weird but cool.
Yeah.
And just some of the stuff you can do is insane.
Yeah. So moving on to like saying some of the insane stuff, is there a favourite game you've ever played, or like a top moment within a game that you kind of gone, it just instantly sticks in your mind?
I think there's probably a couple of games. So I think the one game that was the hardest game ever was the 2018 final round of the GT against Jay, and he hadn't won the GT at this point, and it was Seize the Prize, and
Yeah.
thematically Gollum came on his own, picked up the prize first time, was like, ooh, a shiny prize, and then Bard shot him whilst he just stood for 2 turns transfixed on this prize. But then it was literally Jay with his Lake Town, like throwing everything at me, and I was like, wow. And I'd never seen him play with such intensity, and it was just so stressful because I was like, this is such a good opportunity, like, and I was just, can I hold on? And then like my Warg Marauder managed to like shoot Gandalf off his horse
Nice.
in the same combat, which was like a huge turning point. Subsequently, that's been FAQ'd, so you lose attacks now
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
shoot in combat. Not sure if that game had anything to do with it. Maybe. But it was just so close. But it was like the highest quality of game, and just the stress on it. So
Nice.
I really enjoyed that game.
Yeah.
There was another game where I played with Angmar, and I played Sean, who'd come down from Scotland, and in that game it was domination, I think, or capture and control, and I had the Witch King and Gulliver, and my army was just like getting destroyed by the dwarves, and I was like, right, I've got to somehow get the objectives. Like, if I can just kill myself quickly and be in the right places at the right time. I think Gulliver managed to visit 4 objectives in 2 turns, from like heroic moves, heroic combats, and barches, and I was like,
Nice.
wow. And it was just like such fine margins, but I managed to end the game just enough and just get my heroes to do what they needed. So it was kind of a different, it was like a winning but in a different strategy kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I've done a similar thing with Angmar.
Yeah.
At the tournament we played at, actually, well, we played capture control, wasn't it? And it was like 8-3 to me, and then it went on one more turn, and it finished 9-2 to you, just because you managed to get to 4 of the objectives or whatnot. No, in the same tournament, playing a contest against Army of Thor, I paralysed and transfixed Thor all game, and then killed 2 guys with my Witch King, and then 25% of myself. And it was kind of it's a way to win.
Yeah, I mean, Angmar did hurt my head though, and I'm like, it's a bit too complicated, so I don't really think I'm gonna be picking Angmar up again anytime soon.
It's one of my favourites.
But then there's just like individual moments as well, when it's just like you just either think of a brainwave or something just happens. So in one game, it was at a quarter, the game ends. So after I think it was shooting phase or the movement phase, we knew that the game, or I was at a quarter. So Anuj was like, oh, the game's gonna end this turn. I was like, not necessarily. He's like, but you're at a quarter. I'm like, not necessarily. It got to combat, and I made my Balrog hurl through a Warg Marauder's combat to knock them all off the Warg Marauder to put myself back above 25%.
Nice.
It was entirely irrelevant with that we played another turn and didn't change the game, but it was the very fact that I pulled it off, and it was like, that was strangely satisfying.
I was going to say that's definitely a way to do it. It's definitely an interesting way to do it.
And then obviously there's just like the stuff with the bombs. So
I was going to say that was going to be my next point. You at the GT, you blew yourself up, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just like, well, actually, I'm holding the objectives. I can just blow myself up and end the game and win. I was like, I'll just do that. And then it just became a thing after that. And I was like, oh, well, actually, this is just a great way to just auto-win games.
Yeah.
And then I did it against Ed, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's in the rules, I'm going to do it. I'm like, it's just totally stupid. I have spoken to Jay and said that, look, whilst I was using it, and whilst I would continue to use it, it's just a bit too good. Because there's no counterplay to it. That's the thing.
Blowing yourself up is definitely way, but yeah, the bomb itself, it's tricky to get around it.
I mean, there was nothing my opponent could do because I just literally kept my bomb with a group of Urukai.
Yeah.
And I was like, I played essentially without the bomb. And I was like, if I can just get into the lead and hold the lead long enough, then I just have this switch to kill the game. So it took skill to play without it or play with it in a reserved manner. But once you just decide to do it, you've got so many Urukai around it, they can't shoot you off it, they can't charge you with combats, and it's like, well, this is, I know it's game over, you know it's game over, you can't do anything.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But then the other moment I enjoyed with the bombs was when I pulled off the chain reaction.
Oh, nice.
So it was Contest of Champions, and their champion was in the middle, and I was like, well, I want to make sure that I get them, because if I get them, all I have to do is kill one model with my captain.
Yeah.
So I managed to, I could set the other bomb off anyway, but I just wanted to see if I could do it. Did it, blew the other one up, and I think I scored something like 11 wounds to Gandalf and Legolas, and it was like, yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, that'll definitely do it. So have you got a favourite tournament that you always pick out in the calendar that you want to attend?
I mean, I've never done Seven Stones.
Okay.
Obviously, it'd be nice to do that for the fun of it. But no, I just, there's loads of tournaments really that I'm just like, it's a lot of it's to do with the people as well.
Yeah.
I think one big thing is the venue, and if it's in some factory that's cold in the middle of winter, or for example, this one that's in a church. Have you ever been to the Sanctuary?
No, I've heard good things about it, but have heard it. The
tournament's great. Chilly. The church is lovely. You play in the winter, and it's impossible. So me and Harry ended up there one day, and it was so cold. My phone couldn't hold any battery power. We had lamps just on our table, but even then, like, you just lost the feeling in your fingers.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is not great. So anywhere that's new enough or warm enough is a big factor, really, in my mind.
So what's the last question from me is, what's the furthest you've travelled to play?
It would be Poland.
Oh, for the UTC?
Yeah. So that was just such a good time, really.
Good.
Because it wasn't.
Which team were you part of?
The second England team.
Second England team.
So my team, we had more time. So Poland was dead cheap. We had flights that were like 60 quid. We flew out on the Thursday and flew back on the Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
So we had
5 days of it.
We had like a full-on holiday there.
Oh, nice.
And it was just, we just strolled around the city, and we just like enjoyed ourselves, and we're eating out amazing food every night for like nothing. Yeah. And then I found out like on the Monday that they had a zoo, and I was like,
excellent.
I just said to the team, I was like, you're welcome to join me at the zoo, but I just love the zoo too much. I was like, I am going, just so you know. I went, and it was an amazing zoo, to be honest. They'd done a really good job. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Because who else was in England too?
It was me, Ryan, Barney, and Cowman / and Mick, because Barney was a little bit worse for wear.
Yeah.
So on the second day, he was like sat near the window, looked like he was going to pass out with a bin next to him. I think he did like have food poisoning or something.
Okay.
He was pretty ill.
Pretty
But anyway, Mick ended up having to take his place, which, let's face it, it's not a bad replacement.
No, it's definitely not a bad replacement at all.
I mean, Mick's right up there as one of the best players. So
yeah, I was going to say he's not frequented many tournaments recently, from what I've seen.
no, but just watching him pick up Barney's army and just go,
Oh yeah,
oh cool, I know how this works, and just win with it.
yeah. Oh,
So,
most definitely.
I mean, it was a little bit contentious that he played,
Yeah.
but to be honest, it was against the Czech Republic, and bless, it was literally the only 4 players that play the game in Czech Republic. So like the person I played like had such little experience, and it was like at the end of the game, it's like, so it's the ETC, it's like, well, we need the points, but then at the end of the game, it's like, well, your army kind of needs to be a bit more like this.
Yeah, but like I say, it's that encouraging the newer or less experienced players to understand how to play it a bit more competitively.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
Especially as you're at the ETC.
Yeah, I mean the ETC was great fun for just all of the games and just literally basically having a holiday, essentially. What's the furthest you've been? Have you been outside the country?
No. So the furthest for me would be Manchester or Nottingham.
Never been to Scotland?
No, I haven't had the chance to go up to Stirling yet.
That's a good tournament.
I was going to say I've heard excellent things, and I know that part of the world quite well. I've got a family timeshare up in Loch Lomond, so I know that kind of area.
So extended holiday is what I'm hearing.
If it all falls in line, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Have you got any suggestion on who I should talk to next?
Any suggestion? I don't know. Maybe somebody who's sort of maybe on the committee, and maybe give them questions.
Yeah.
About the committee.
I was going to say I did have a long conversation with Alistair, and it never appeared. It never raised its head. We were talking about personal gaming.
He just likes to be this dictator behind the scenes that nobody really knows that he's head of things.
Yeah.
He just does it. But yeah, I guess maybe I haven't seen the new one today, but maybe just people who are not necessarily like competitive gamers. I know you've talked to some of the painters, but maybe try and get some views from people who are maybe quite relatively new.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea. And then you'll just maybe get some different answers and different thoughts.
So the one that's gone out today, so the 15th, is Jorrit from the Netherlands. So I played him at Hardicon the second year, and we've stayed in contact. And so it was nice to get a view of a different scene. And yeah, I'm going to try and get some more international opinions and to gauge what their scene's like as well. So
yeah, there's definitely some the Italian team and the Spanish team. They're both those teams. They're really nice, and I think you get a lot out from maybe speaking to them.
Good. So thank you, Jasmine. If you've enjoyed this video, please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.